Hello, everyone. Super excited to have you all here. Thank you for joining the Words Writing Paths Workshop, Agents Spill the Tea. My name is Alyssa, and I am the program deputy, a children's book author, and your host for today's event. The Word is a nonprofit organization whose mission is storytelling for collective abundance. We center authentic storytelling for BIPOC, LGBTQIA2S, neurodiverse, and disabled communities. Support and connect writers, publishers, booksellers, and readers. Explore and build collective models for the literacy ecosystem. And we hold space in community. Our main programs include the Editor Writer Mentorship Program, our Margins Literacy Conference and Book Fair, and upcoming in August, our Margins Bookselling Month, including the BIPOC Bookseller Award. But then we also have the pleasure of hosting publishing talks like this one. We always have new events and programming to share, so we hope that you'll check out the wordfordiversity.org to stay up to date and connected. We're so lucky to have an amazing panel of agents. I'm going to bring them on. You don't have to contain your excitement. You'll continue to share all the love in the chat. Here we have Kaitlyn Sanchez, Carly Dizon, Leslie Zampetti, and Linda Camacho. And I realized we were having such a great conversation that I made a really big mistake and didn't ask how to pronounce everyone's names. So if I made a mistake on your name, please check me. Let's start with introductions. Kaitlyn, I want to put you on the spot because you are my agent. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm so lucky that Alyssa took a chance on me when I was a new baby agent, and she's just absolutely amazing. So if you ever need to learn anything, definitely follow Alyssa. I have learned tons from her. We have learned a ton together, and we're just having a lot of fun in this world of writing picture books and learning how to get them published. So I have been agenting for 3 years now, if you can believe it, Alyssa. And we have 34 books contracted on our list of Team Sanchez wonderful writers. We have mainly picture books, but we also have awesome middle grade and YA authors as well. So we're just trying to do our best to connect in this community and bring beauty to the world.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Carly, you're up.
I actually started off as a writer in 2016. So I was green as can be back then and thought that I was going to be able to put my fresh manuscript on the bookshelf, and that was it. And I ended up attending the San Francisco Writers Conference, where I learned what an agent actually was. I didn't even know that there was an agent. And I saw the connection between writers and agents, and I'm a natural cheerleader. So I was like, I want to do this. This is something I want to do. And I ended up connecting with Lori McLean, who was the director at the time of the conference, and she got me an internship at Fuse Literary, where I became an associate agent in 2019. And then just earlier this year, I was promoted to agent also. So I'm about 4 years in the industry, also still very green, still learning. It's such a big industry. But yeah, I started off as a writer, so pick my brain about that aspect from going from a writer to an agent and learning literally from the ground up. But yeah.
I love that. And I love that you described yourself as a cheerleader, because that is absolutely what I was looking for when I was querying for an agent. Like, you need someone that's going to advocate for your work and that's going to be super excited to pitch your work to editors. So yes, that is the perfect word. Agent / cheerleader / mentor / friend / all the things. I feel like agents do everything, and oh my gosh, you are all so amazing. And I've actually had the pleasure of meeting Leslie in person.
Yes, I'm very lucky that I met you. We are both in the Philadelphia area, and it has been so much fun.
So go ahead and introduce yourself for us.
I'm Leslie Zampetti. I'm with Oda Media Management. I've been agenting now for going on 6 years. It doesn't feel like it's that long. I actually was a librarian for many years before becoming an agent. I also was a writer, and much like Carly, I was at a New Jersey SCBWI conference and happened to be talking with John Cusick and a bunch of other authors. And when he left the conversation, I was like, yeah, that sounds really interesting. It sounds like every day is different. And one of the other authors turned to me, who's published and agented, and said, well, I'd be your client. And I was like, that is so sweet. But then I went home and thought about it and said, what do you need to be an agent? And so I started working on it. And when I did for qualifications, I was lucky enough to be a reader for the Bent Agency. And then I received an assistant's position with Jenny Dunham at Dunham Literary late last year. It's been almost a year now. It's hard to believe. Time has been flying. I joined Monica Odom at Odom Media Management, and it's been wonderful. I represent both picture books through YA, and I also represent adult clients. And so it's something for everybody here at Team Zampetti.
That is amazing. Yes, we have a lot of interest across the board in terms of genre. So super glad that you represent the whole gambit. And Linda, can you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Linda Camacho. I'm an agent at Galton Zacher Literary Agency. Oh, how long? I've been at Galton Zacher 8 years. Not 8 years. I've been agenting 8 years. At Galton Zacher 5, and I've been in publishing about 18 years at this point. So I started on the other side at Penguin before it was Penguin Random House, and kind of did a little bit of everything before I found my way here. I did get my MFA in creative writing while I was working at Random House, but writing is hard, so I feel like my talents lie elsewhere. I'm all right. I'm good, but I do love my Netflix, so I think I'll leave that to the professionals. So I represent a little bit of everything from picture books, middle grade, young adult, kid lit, and then some adult fiction as well in there.
All right. I can't believe that long because you look stunning. I feel like seriously, like I believe you because like why would you lie about that? But like I literally can't believe that you've done anything for longer than like 6-7 years. Like, are you kidding me? Mujer, whatever your skin routine is, you got to share that with me after
I just slather on Pond's. I
still
do. It's my mom's stuff. I just put that on.
That's it, I think, because you're the second person that has said Pond's, and I'm like, espérate. Okay. So, all right. I'm taking notes, not just on agenting, but apparently on skincare. So you get it all here with the word. We're going to jump into some questions. But if you have questions as we're going along and chit-chatting, feel free to pop them in the chat. And I will do my best to address them all. We have over 100 people on this live, and we had over 200 people that registered and that are probably going to watch the repeat. So if I do not get to your question, please do not be mad at me. Well, actually, you can have all your feelings about me, but that's the reason why I didn't get to it. If for whatever reason I do not get to your question, please feel free to email us at info@thewordfordiversity.org. Okay? Vamos. Okay. The next question, well, the first like real question is, why are you an agent and what drew you to agenting? Some of you already mentioned that, you wanted to be a cheerleader, you dabbled in the writing, you did this, you did that, but any other reasons why you were like, this is it, this is what I'm going to do. I feel like I would make an amazing agent. And I'm going to change up the order a little. And Linda, I'm going to call on you first.
Yes. Oh, I had done, I think like most people, at least for me, when I think of publishing, or when I used to think of publishing, it was about editorial. Those are the people, you just know who they are generally. So I wanted to do that, when I started way back when, and I just couldn't get a job in it. I just took the jobs that they were kind enough to let me have. And even my very first job, it was on the adult side, and I worked way back end in reprints, like all of the reprints. So I just feel like I kept moving closer and closer to the front line of things. And I think it's just because I kind of tried a little bit of everything kind of accidentally in publishing. And I knew I was getting closer. And I was like, okay, I like this, but not this. And just working with the talent and helping to shape their stories. And it's just something really special. And it just doesn't get old. Yeah. I'll never get tired of that.
Love that. Love that. All right, Kaitlyn.
Well, my story is very similar to everyone else's, except for Linda. She's exceptional for, everyone here. No, but I did the same thing. I actually am a teacher by trade. As many of you know, I teach middle school math and I love it. And I'm just one of those people that loves to do lots of things. And I kind of stumbled upon writing picture books. And I was in like 9 critique groups at one point because I just loved editing so much. And then I stumbled upon these awesome blog contests by Susanna Leonard Hill and Vivian Kirkfeld. And to be 100% honest, my critique group and I loved them so much. It was like writing crack for us. And so when there was like a big break where we didn't get to have these competitions for a while, we were like jonesing. And so we decided to create our own. And so my critique partner, Sierra O'Neill, and I just brought it to the masses. And it was so much fun. And my favorite parts were creating this community and connecting people. And I was super lucky that in one of my million critique groups, I had James McGowan, who was an intern at the time, and Andrea Hall, who was also an intern. I was like, dude, is this what agents do? And they were like, yes. And so I was so excited to be able to take that love of editing and that love of connecting people and find a place for it. And then when I really thought back to it, I had always been one of those kids that loved selling stuff when I was a kid. I was the kid that like every time we had to sell something for school or raise money for soccer or cheerleading or whatever to band trips, I loved it. I loved selling stuff. And I actually did business classes in high school. And then we did this like mock car sales, and we went to a real car dealership. And when I talked to the guy, I was like, oh, so you like love cars so much and you love selling them? And he was like, no, I just read the pamphlet and try to upsell so I can get more money. And I was like, I cannot do this with my life. I hate that. Like, I want to do something that's important. So of course I stuck with teaching. And once I discovered publishing was me getting to use my sales acumen for something that's beautiful in the world and getting people to see themselves like just who they are and grow as people, I was like, this is it, man. And so that's what I'm here for.
I love that. And I know Kaitlyn is a true fire sign through and through, and Aries all the way. So I totally believe that you were in that many critique groups at the same time while mothering and while working. Yes, I totally believe that. All right. So Leslie, I know you started off as a librarian.
Yes, I actually started out, of all things, in corporate libraries and things like working for NASA. I was really cataloging rocket shot videos for their library at their base in Virginia. Yeah, it was kind of cool. And much like Linda, I did various types of libraries at one point in my life. I fell into public libraries because I literally went to reading my books online and, oh, look, they had a job ad. And I was like, I don't need childcare if I work reference. I can do nights and weekends. Woohoo! And that brought me to actually, when I left that interview, where they're like, you have the job, but by the way, one of our children's librarians is going on maternity leave. And I was like, sure, kids are just short patrons. It'll be great. But part of what was great about it was also sort of having to immerse myself in children's literature again, because of course things were leaps and bounds, very different from when I've been a kid. And kids, there's no bullshit. They know when you're bluffing them and just recommending things based on the pamphlet or the, ALA book list article. So I really was reading things to get a sense of what they were. And the more I read it, my daughter was small at the time. I also started writing. And when I came to New York with her for my husband's job, her elementary school did not have a librarian. They had a very nice library, but no librarian. They had wonderful volunteers, but it's not the same. And so my response was to go to the principal and say, hey, I do bake cupcakes and they're not bad, but I am much better as a librarian. And she was like, I don't believe in parents in the classroom. And I was like, well, I get that. I'm not interested in being a parent in the classroom. I'm interested in being your librarian. If you want me to sign on where my daughter is not here, great. And result was I was their librarian for several years until the point where I was like, I can't keep working for free. And in the midst of all this, I'd been working on my own writing. And I got to a point when I decided, yeah, agenting looks really interesting. That looks like a way of really melding my creative brain and my desire to interact and work with other creative people, and also to have even more input into, what readers want and how can you get it to them. Instead of being at the back end and buying it for them, you're at the front end and, hey, we're creating this. But I was also able to use that business brain that used to negotiate with LexisNexis and work for consulting firms and things like that. And so it was wonderful. And again, I sort of, did what we all often do, make that list, pros, cons, what do I bring to the table, what do I need to learn? And I've been grateful for the mentorship I've had from other agents. Agenting is very much an apprenticeship model, and it can be wonderful. I also volunteer strongly with the AALA, which is the Association for American Literary Agents, and they have wonderful programming for those who want to be baby agents and grow into bigger agents as well, and more community. And it's just sort of just kind of kept rolling from there. Probably the biggest impetus, though, was, unlike Kaitlyn, I am not a fire sign. I am very definitely an Aquarius. And I was like, librarianship, writing, agenting, something's got to go. Mom, forget that was over here. I was like, things are cutting into my reading time. I need to figure out what's going on here. And I decided, you know what, it was really time for a change. It was time to enjoy and just totally commit to being an agent.
I love that. Yeah. And I love how you preserve your reading time. Hashtag goals. I'm not the best at it, but I'm gonna take a page out of your book.
You have to, as a writer, as a reader, as well, not even as a reader, as an agent. Yes. If you don't know what else is going on in the world and reading about it, how can you keep up?
100. Yes, you heard it here. You have to make time for that reading time. All right, Kylie, you're up.
So my background is a little bit of everything. I had a pretty successful private tutoring company when I was in that kind of college time. I was working with all the elementary, middle school, and high school. And so working with kids has always been a part of me and why I represent Kidlit today. And then afterwards of that, I did go into business, like Kaitlyn. I was in a business school, but I was in marketing and graphic design, and that's what I did after college. And so I have a little bit of business background. I have a lot of kid interactions. And again, I didn't know agenting was a thing. So when I went to the conference and I learned what the industry was, and I was like, well, I've worked with kids before. I have a passion for books. I love reading. I love, obviously, writing, being in the business sector. Editing has been a freelance thing that I've been doing forever. I was like, I can make this into a job. I could do this every day where I work with people and help them achieve their dreams of becoming published and putting works out there. And as being a mom of a little boy, I want books where he can see himself represented in. And so literally that's as these years evolved. At first it was like, oh, I get to be an agent and just help edit books. But as these years have progressed and I've become a mom in the different stages of my life, I'm like, I want these kids to be able to be celebrated. I want them to be able to pick up a book and be like, that looks like me. My family looks like that. We do that at home, and be excited to open that book because they're reflected on the page. I know growing up for me, I didn't have a whole lot of books growing up with covers that look like me. And back then, it was one of those things where you just kind of accepted it and you read what was available. And I loved books, but now being as a mom, I'm like, I want you to have whatever books you feel excited to read about, that you don't feel forced, because in that journey, that adventure is there. And that's why I'm an agent today, is I want kids to feel recognized, celebrated in both their highs and their lows, to know that they're not alone. So, yeah.
I love that. You're about to make me cry. I was not ready for that, but thank you. I love that so much. Yes. I mean, as an author and as a mom, that's definitely at the heart of why I do what I do as an author, but also as a program deputy for the Word. And it's always awesome to be able to put programming like this together to peel back the curtain, right? Because I didn't know agenting was a thing until I needed to get an agent, and there's so much gatekeeping that happens. So yeah, thank you. That's amazing. I feel like you've all kind of talked a little bit about what you love about agenting. Feel free to share an extra thing, but let's talk about some of the challenges with being an agent. We're going to change up the order. I'm going to pick on Leslie first.
Oh, great. So I get to kvetch first. Okay. There's actually very little that I see as a downside personally. I love that it is always a mixture. Every day is a little bit different. Everything is new because every client is different. Every contract is different. Every book is different. Even if you have two people writing a mystery and it sounds like it's going to be teens at a boarding school and they're trying to figure out who's killing the teachers, they're going to be completely different books. They're never going to be the same. But in terms of the negatives, you have to have a pretty thick skin. People always say, oh, agents, you're the gatekeepers. I got news, honey. We're not the gatekeepers. We're the middlemen. I'm getting rejection from potential clients, and I'm getting rejection from editors for my clients. So you need to be able to buck it up and say, this is a rough patch, but it will pass and everything's going to go. And you need to be able to take that on, especially for some of your clients that deal with anxiety or other issues, because you don't want to offload that. You have to help them process that. I will also be realistic and say that financially, agenting is very difficult, especially these days, and especially in the publishing world, which, wants to say, well, we don't want to pay your authors, or we're going to pay this celebrity $1 bazillion for a book that really isn't going to sell that well, but we're not going to pay these other 100 authors who have books that are so much better and will sell so much better, that pot of money. So you are negotiating that as an agent. And that is why so many agents do have day jobs, like Kaitlyn, because you're not necessarily going to be paying your bills. It's something to really think about. And it's something that I think has often been sort of the dirty secret in agenting, is how many agents do have a day job and a full-time job. And I am always so grateful to be privileged enough that agenting is my day job, and also so just amazed at all of the agents I know who work either part-time or full-time outside of agenting and are still delivering just fantastic service to their clients.
Ooh, you dropped so many gems in there. Yes, Carly, go.
I'm just going to add to that, a lot of agents enter into this industry because of the passion for the industry, and we stay in it. 4 years into it, this is my second job still. I have to have a day job. So this is my night job that I do till 2 or 3 in the morning. It's because of the love of the work, the love of the mission that we have. So I know it's easy to say, it's like, you guys are the gatekeepers. Well, no, we're here because we want to be right alongside with you in this journey. So it's more of a partnership, really, that we're trying to find with you to get you to where you want to be. Partnership, keyword.
I love that. Agents are not the gatekeepers. Okay, that is the moral of the story. I'm learning myself. I love this. Can you share any other challenges, Carly?
I would have to say one of the biggest challenges that I have, especially being a newer agent, is the weight of feeling like you're disappointing your clients when you can't sell the work that you signed them on for. And there could be so much love for that work, but there are so many other factors that influence it. And I've turned down, unfortunately, even books from potential clients because looking at the market, looking at what editors are asking for, looking at what was just acquired, I can't sign on a client or someone if I know that I can't sell it because the market's too overloaded with those kind of works, or the timing just isn't right. So the challenging part is feeling like you're failing your clients because the industry is just a continuous movement, and it's almost like you're playing catch up every time and trying to get it just at the right spot. So for me, it's like an emotional journey. I'll call my clients all the time and I'm like, what can we do to get you there? Let's brainstorm and work together. So it's the trying to be there for them in an ever-changing market.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, agents are people too, and it's hard. I could not, I'm a cheerleader, but I did one of Kaitlyn's competition, contests, and I had to be a judge, and I was like, no, I cannot be an agent because that was so hard. Like, I don't know how you do it. Hats off to all of you. And so, yeah, Kaitlyn, share your favorite part. And
Perfect timing, because besides the other things that were mentioned, one of the hardest things for me is the query box. Like, I thought it was like a teacher thing. I was talking to agent, like Carly said, we talked to our editor. I was talking to editor the other day, and like Carly said, we talk to editors all the time because we want to get a feel for what they have. We want to have those good relationships. They want to buy stuff from us and stuff like that. And I thought like, oh, the reason that it's like I request a lot and I have that maybe pile there for such a long time is because I see the potential. And I thought that was like a teacher thing, but the editor was like, no, we're exactly the same way. Like, that's what editors do, right? That's their job, is to see the potential and then take it to the next level so that when it gets out to the public, people are just in love with it. So it's like both worlds, right? That teacher world, that editor world, like I see the potential. And so I feel so bad when I'm sitting with something for so long. I remember reading on Query Tracker, there people can make comments, and someone said like death by maybe pile. And I was like, oh, like, I feel so bad, but it's true. Like, I see that potential. And so knowing exactly what I want to pick, but there are definitely times where I'm just like, oh my God, like with Alyssa and with all the clients that I have, I just like saw their work and I was just like, oh my, I have to have this right now, and especially being so into picture books, it's so hard for me right now because I have such a great stable of picture book authors that are rolling out things to me all the time that I'm like, even if there's something in my query box and I'm like, oh, I really, really want that. I'm like, do I have the time? And it's not because I have an extra job, just in general, having a lot of clients, like it's hard to explain to people how much work goes into being an agent or being an editor, because a lot of stuff is just done over emails. You're like, I do emails all day. But the idea of like what you're doing all the time with the different supports, I mean, the things that go into books, it blows my mind when I have an editor that's doing this, and this for one book. And then I'm thinking, holy crap, how many books are they working on right now? So, yeah.
Yes, bring us home.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was going to say, branching off of that too, it's so true that, and I'll add my own thing as well, but I definitely talk to, when you talk to a lot of writers, sometimes they'll say, oh, this agent hasn't gotten back to me in so long. That means they probably wouldn't be a good agent for me. It's like, well, that could be true. However, don't assume that, because our focus is our clients, right? That's the quality of care we have to give our clients. And I'm very, very behind on my queries. I at least try to go, I'm sorry, I will read it at some point. But our clients are first and foremost. So that's why I say, give them a chance, as long as they're being communicative in some way with you and being respectful of your time as well. Don't assume that, oh, they're too busy for me now, they're going to be too busy for me later. It's like, no, absolutely not true. So another thing I find difficult is the client agent breakups. I think that can be very difficult, whether on either side of it. I think it's just one of those things. And it's not, a lot of people will come and query and they'll go, oh, I had another agent before, and they'll treat it like it's a shameful thing. And it isn't. It really isn't. There are always so many reasons. There have been people that I adore, like I truly adore, and we adore each other. And sometimes your interests or their interests change, your paths diverge. So there are different reasons for that. So I find that always difficult when that does happen, and you have to kind of have the talk in some way. You're like, oh, I don't want this to happen, but yeah.
Can I segue off of that? My very first client, Laura K. Zimmerman, who has the beautiful book Mushroom Rain, if you haven't read it yet, literally came to me because of that. She was writing picture book biographies. Her agent was all into that. And then she switched to writing about the STEM themes that those PB Bio people were based on. And her agent was just like, I don't know how to handle those. And so that's how I got her. And now I have this amazing first client. So that's a success story for those of you that need it. That's the exact same thing. Like, yes, it's hard, but if you let someone go, there's a reason. If they choose to go, there's a reason. And you have to just believe that it's for a good one, and there's plenty of times where it is.
Oh,
I'd like to add to that, actually, if I could. And sometimes it's not only when you've had that experience, sometimes it's before. My client, Kate Allen Fox, whose book about the eclipse, Few Beautiful Minutes, is coming out this fall. When she first queried me, there was another agent who put the hat in the ring, and they got her. But they were a project by project agent. And she was really, I think they told her they could sell that book quickly and go. And I was like, rats. But I said, well, good luck. I wish you all success. And you know what? Not even a year later, she was back in my inbox because her other work, the other agent either wasn't excited about it. I don't know what her experience was with them. I mean, it was fine. The book sold. But she's been with me ever since because we are a fit for her career-wise. And a lot of times I look back and I think, everything happens when it's meant to be. And that is true not only for our clients in terms of coming to us, it's terms of agents who are requesting or not requesting for you. It's even terms of, submissions. Monica pointed out to me one day with one client who I just cannot give up on her book. And she said, Leslie, you've had 4 near misses with this book. The universe is trying to tell you something. It's just not the right time for it. Time for a new book from your client.
Go for it. Yeah. You don't have to raise your hand. You can.
Hurley,
We're all in school still.
It's like, hi. It's, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really, I mean, all these messages, finding the right partner, and you're going to go through different stages of your writing, and your agent's going to go through different stages of what they're looking for a client. So if that match is no longer there, you are, as much as we say we're an advocate for you, you have to also advocate for your career. So if you see that there's a mismatch happening at all, it's time to have that discussion. Where are you headed? Where am I headed? And are we matching up? And if not, then it is an amicable parting of ways, because it's disappointing for the agent not to be able to get you to where you want to be. And it's also frustrating for you because you're also working alongside someone who's getting your career somewhere. And that's why it's so, so important when you have your interview with your agent, that call, that you make sure that where your weaknesses lie, that your agent can provide the strength for that. So if you're a terrible editor, you find an agent who loves to edit. If you aren't sure about the market and you don't know how to really do that, you have an agent who can provide that kind of data. So where are you missing? Are you looking for someone who can hold your hand through the process? Because there are those kind of agents, but there are the agents also that say, give me your work and I'm just going to sell it. And they are a salesman. So really, what are you looking for? And these are the kind of questions you need to find to make sure that they are the right partner for your career.
Yes, love that. We're going to actually take an audience question. We're going to take Erica's question because it's related to what we're talking about. I'm curious if you passed on earlier queries, then eventually take on that writer. Is it likely the earlier manuscript query to you will not work on further? You guys can read, sorry.
Can I jump in on here? Because this question actually really appealed to me. And I want to tell people, persistence is the key and the slush pile is the key. One of my clients came to me. She first queried me over 2 years before I offered her rep. And she kept working away and she kept sending me projects and she kept sending me revisions. And I kept reading them and going, I love these ideas, but we're not there yet. And we finally hit the point where, yes, I was ready. She was ready. It worked. I will say it often depends on the agent. For me, I will work on earlier manuscripts if those are manuscripts that appeal for me. But again, I tend to be a whole career agent. I'm looking at you in toto. The first thing I ask for any picture book writer is, I'd like to see 2 to 3 more manuscripts and also a summary of your ideas, because I want to see that long-term we're going to work together. And so for me, if I see earlier manuscripts, I might be like, that premise is sparking something else about this, or I really love that premise, but that form's not working for me. It's in rhyme and I want to see you write it in prose. Let's see where we can go. But I also have colleagues that I admire greatly. They are amazing agents and they will be like, if it wasn't working, let's focus on what is working and let's go forward from there.
Love that. And I'm going to interject really quick because of what you said. Don't be afraid as an author of R&Rs. Like, R&Rs are gold. Those revise and resubmits from both agents and editors are gold. My first book, Platanos Are Love, was an R&R, not only from Kaitlyn, but also from my editor. All of my books really have been R&Rs. I'm currently working on another one. So, agents and editors alike want to see how you respond to feedback. They want to see that you can implement what they're saying. And if you have, if your vision for it aligns. Obviously, if the feedback doesn't resonate at all, don't do it, right? But if the feedback does, try it. So strong proponent of R&Rs. Any other agent wants to chime in on Erica's question, go for it. Yes.
Just the backpacking off of or piggybacking off of the R&R. Anytime I submit an R&R or tell an author there's so much potential here, but I want to see this, and this, I always end with take my advice with a grain of salt, because where I see this going is going to be so different from someone else. I've literally sat on a critique panel and me and another agent just provided clashing feedback. And that's the thing, is that we have different visions and different preferences for how we want to see stories develop. So if it doesn't jive with where you want to go with the story, it is just something to hold in your back pocket for future. If there is an agent that falls in love with the work as it is, that's fantastic. That is your match. But to work with a specific agent, if your heart is really there, then that R&R is that opportunity to show that I'm willing to work with you. Let's get my manuscript to a place that you would be happy to accept for representation.
Yep. Can I piggyback on that piggyback? We'll have like a really big piggyback ride going on. One time I had this great author illustrator, up and coming author illustrator, absolutely brilliant. She won one of our spring fling contests. And so I offered to represent her. I loved her work. And I had this vision in my head for one of her stories. And I thought, you should try this. We talked about it. And when we were on the call, as many of you know, I'm a super honest and open person. So she was totally comfortable like sharing with me that another agent loved her work too. And my reaction was, bing, that's the perfect agent for you, based on all the books that she sold and based on what this picture book was doing. And I was like, I'm not taking back my offer. I'm still offering to you, but I just want you to know that I think that might be the way to go, because that agent sees your vision and she's sold books like that with that same vision. So I think that I might not be the best match for you. Please still consider me, because you're amazing. But I just wonder if that might be the better path for you. And now, she sent me the sweetest email and was like, you're right. I think this is a better person for me, even though, I love you so much. And it was great, so super amicable. So we also just want to see people in the right place too, because we don't want to have that clash either, where we're like, oh, we think we see it this way. And you're like, you think you see it this way, because then that agent breakup is inevitable.
So just a little personal story off of this about really just being honest with authors. Like, there have been several of those where I've told the author, because they were ready to jump on that R&R, and I said, no, you're still early in your querying process. Go through a few rounds, figure out what other people are saying. And if you're seeing the same critique being provided to you, then maybe take it with a little bit more weight. But out of those, I said, just wait. And I can tell you 3 authors that I have told to wait to see if they can connect with a different agent. They found another agent. Those works went to a 6-figure auction. And obviously I'm over here like crying in my little corner, partly out of joy for them, because you get to know the authors that you're advocating for, that you want to see them succeed. So I'm crying tears of joy because they found their contract, but I'm also crying tears of like, what did I do? Because I lost the opportunity. But at the end of the day, I knew I didn't have the vision that matched up with where they wanted to go with it. It's okay, where they wanted to go with it. So ultimately they found the best home for it. But I mean, it's really, it's a mixed bag of emotions.
Right. All right. I do want to readdress some of the other questions. This was amazing. I love this. We don't have to raise hands, but occasionally I might cut you guys off so we can get as many questions in. I thought this question was interesting. Is being an agent commission only, or do some people have full-time jobs as agents and don't have another job on the side? We talked about this, but I don't think we talked about like the structure and how agents are paid. So if anyone wants to share anything else on that would be great.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on this. It really does vary. There are some larger scale agencies that will pay a salary. And a lot of agents, it depends on where they start on the totem pole. Sometimes they start as an agent assistant, and then they'll get paid a salary, and then over time they'll get less money, and then they'll get more commission. Commission is generally the way it's done, especially because of the size of the agency. More boutique agencies and even mid-size agencies, that's just the way they do it. Sometimes there's something they do that's called a draw, where they think of it as like an advance, where they pay you so much a year and you, like an author, would have to earn that out. To me, that sounds really stressful. No, I get paid on commission. So I definitely have had a lot of side gigs, and I do less of that now, but I still do like freelance editing, freelance things here, so long as they don't conflict with my current job. So, yeah, many agents do have the side gig, some don't. It really does vary. But what I like is that with these conversations, they're being had these days. Because even in the early 2000s and beyond, you were not allowed, or not allowed, you were strongly encouraged to not indicate that you had another job. It was considered embarrassing and shameful, and you just didn't do it. So I had many meetings, that I would have to take. Then I'd be negotiating for clients, but I'd be away at a meeting or working at a restaurant in the very beginning, which I did. So yeah, at the time, you weren't allowed to talk about it. And so even there became that perception with writers who thought, oh, well, when they found out that people did have side jobs, and this was earlier on, that the agent wasn't as serious about their career because, oh, well, you're taking away time from me. But it's just, no, we want to be able to eat and to have a roof over our heads so that we could pursue our dream. And that's usually, again, commission is the way we do it. And it varies depending on people's financial circumstances, whether they work or not.
I also feel like it's a sign of the industry becoming, I mean, I know it sounds crazy to say this, but the industry is becoming somewhat more equitable. It is becoming more inclusive. And to be able to say, yeah, you're not, paying me enough to eat. You're not, I have to do other things for this work. Again, I personally, this is my full-time job. I am commission only. And I'm very open about that, because if we're not open, then how do people know what to expect when they get into things? And one of the things that I think people do need to move more open about is it's like compensation for authors. Some people don't want to put their business out there, but this is why publishing is getting away with paying authors in 4 payments instead of 2, because people were not open about what was going on, and people were just taking it. It's like, no, you know what? My authors often have day jobs, because again, your advance may look great, but if you're not getting a quarter of it until the book's published, it's not an advance anymore, people. That is like my hill I will die on in publishing. There's a reason it's called an advance. But this is a lot of it, is how can we be open with how people are paid? How can we be open? Publishing shouldn't be the province of, rich white guys anymore.
Woo, preach, yes. I loved all of that. We are going to switch to talking about queries, though, because people want to know do's and don'ts. So querying is basically the process by which you ask an agent to represent you. So we want to hear do's and don'ts, what makes a good query. And I will start off with Linda.
I would say it's usually the extreme things that for the don't, right? So I've definitely gotten many queries where the person is overconfident, where the person is like, I'm going to make you $1 million and you're nuts if you say no. And conversely, I will get the person who goes, this is my first book, it's terrible, but please represent me. So you kind of don't want to be on either of the side of those fences. I'm a fan of confidence, and I understand it's not easy, I know, but try not to do either of those things. So, you present yourself, you present your book. This is your baby. This is something that is incredibly hard to put out there, but yeah. And I always joke, but this is a true thing too. I work for Galton Zacher. So sometimes people will say, Dear Mrs. Galton Zacher. And that's not my name. So know my name. That's also a helpful hint. Yeah.
Love that. Thank you. All right, Kaitlyn, you're up.
I have to finish laughing first. Linda cracks me. I think definitely following the directions, which can be hard because sometimes you'll have, you'll have directions on the website. There'll be directions on manuscript wish list. There'll be directions on query tracker. So it can be kind of hard to follow. But, for with the agency I'm at right now, when it's picture books, you can send 2 to 3 at once. And so when people just query one, I'm like, oh man, I wish they would have sent me a couple others to see if I really do want a request or not, kind of a thing. Or they'll send them separately, and I'm like, oh, I wish they were together, all three in the same query, which might be something I need to, fix on my end on the website so that's clear. So that's definitely a do, is know that. But I mean, it's a lot. Like, we are not like totally unaware of the fact that it's a lot. When you want to query, it can take like an hour just to send one query out, because you're researching the person, especially if you have multiple things that you're querying that you're like, oh, this could be a good fit, or this could be a good fit, and you're like trying to figure that out, and then you have to fill in all those boxes and everything. Like, we know it's a lot, but we're also going to be investing a ton of time without getting paid until that actually sells. So if you can put that in your mind, hopefully it'll help make it a little bit easier. And yeah, same, don't send queries to my email, because they just get deleted, because that's not where I accept queries, kind of a thing. So following those directions, I think, is the best thing. But also doing the research. If you are new, find someplace, Kidlit 411, SCBWI's, the book has basics, Query Shark is wonderful. That way you kind of know the format, because when someone sends me something where it is obvious that they haven't, invested their time into learning about how queries should look, then I, feel like they haven't really delved into this business enough to be ready for having an agent.
Yeah, I'd say it's a lot about, you want to be polite and reasonably professional, and the standards for that are actually kind of low, based on, you can see from what Linda has said. Treat people the way you want to be treated, not just knowing our names, but give us your name. This is a partnership. If you don't tell me anything about, this book is the next bestseller, and then there's your manuscript, I have no idea if you're somebody I even want to work with. You might have a wonderful manuscript, but that doesn't give me confidence that when you're working with your editor, that you're going to be able to send a business email that actually gives the editor what they need and want to respond to. Yeah, following the rules, we hate it, but it's a great thing to do. I personally love Query Tracker and Query Manager because I feel like it makes it easier. I try to ask the minimum of questions and fields to make it easier on querying writers. But they are there for a purpose. And I will say, the people who don't follow the rules, it's obvious when it's a mistake. I personally, you've misspelled my name, it's okay. We all make typos. I have forgiveness for that. I have a lot less forgiveness for the person who queried me on Query Manager and then tried to email and DM me on Twitter because they had other people requesting the manuscript and they wanted to make sure I didn't miss it. And it's like, well, you could have told me that on Query Manager. No, you thought you would jump the line and get special access. And yeah, I don't want to work with you. That's not going to be a good relationship. There may be agents who do. Great, you should work with them.
Perfect. And
go ahead.
Yeah, go for it, Carly. And then I want to jump to this question because it's specifically related to querying.
No, we're good. We covered the bases. We're good.
So Nicole asks, how long after we send one query and it's rejected, can we send you a whole different manuscript? I think that's a really good question. Anyone can jump on. We're good.
I mean, I don't think of it as like there's a soft timeline. For me, the soft timeline is, even if you have, like, sometimes you already have something in your back pocket, as long as it's like an amazing shape, the best shape you can get it, it's okay. Even if it's the next day or something, that's totally fine. But I start to get a little wary when I've passed on a project and then the next day something comes in. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then I pass on that. Then the next day, another thing. I think I was queried by someone and it wasn't even like picture book stuff. It was like one long manuscript, a picture. It was like 10 different things in the same week after I'd passed on certain things. So like that might be, again, anything in excess. But if you have something that's amazing also, you're like, I really want to work with this person, let me send it a few days after, that's fine. I have no problem with that.
I think you also want to look at nuances. Yes, we all hate the dreaded form rejections, but given the amount of queries we get, if you want a response, I have to have a form, because it's just not feasible for me to send a personalized response to the literally hundreds I get every month. Used to be thousands every month. Since moving to Odom, it's been cut down a little, which is kind of nice. If someone says right out, yes, I'd love to see future queries for you, great. Send a different project when you're ready. If they say, I'd like to see this when it's been revised, take a little time with it. If you do revise, think about it, put the time into that. If somebody says, this just is not a fit for me, and that's all they say, maybe think about why they're saying that, particularly if you thought it would be a fit. Maybe that's a sign that that's not the right agent for you, that they're not seeing what you see in your work. If they send you a direct, I do not represent X, yeah, don't send any more of that, please. Please, just don't. I get a lot of political thrillers where people say, well, but it's a mystery. And it's like, it says specifically that I don't represent political thrillers. You're not doing yourself any favors, and you're really wasting your time, because that's not something I'm going to be successful for you with.
Awesome. Speaking of form rejections, I'm going to pivot to Josie's question. An opinion on socials last week stated that writers get form rejections because they're sending form queries. Do you appreciate the standard hook, book, cook query form, or should we be mixing it up? Anyone can tackle this one. Go for it.
I know for me, I really like the standard hook, book, cook, because for me, the query is there as a teaser for me to dive into the pages. And I don't want to spend more than a few minutes reading your query, getting the gist of what you're writing about, where it's going to shift, and where it's going to sit and who you are, and spending time on that when I could be getting into the heart of your work, which is your text. That's where I want to be. So for me, maybe it's personal preference, but I like queries to have a sense of obviously your personality or your character's voice to some essence, but I'm not looking for like a super unique take on a query that's only going to work to take me away from your text itself.
There is nothing more disappointing than when you get a really stellar query and they have really bad pages. But it's always a delight when somebody sends you, a perfectly fine query and they have amazing pages. Nobody's rejecting you because your query is a form query.
Yeah, that's really a good point. I mean, and Leslie, you had said this as well, right? We just don't have the bandwidth after a point, right? And we feel bad. There's always that guilt, right? With first keeping up with queries. And then secondly, when we do respond, it's you want to give some sort of feedback, but just unless there's something that truly stuck out to me, and that's a rare thing for me. And honestly, and I always say, like what even Carly said as well, take it with a grain of salt. This is such a subjective business. A thing I just didn't get most of my rejections, I'd say like 98% of it, not even kidding, it's I didn't get excited about it. Perfectly well written, nothing wrong, like I just so I say I go by my gut instinct, and I say that in my query, in my rejection. I will say this is just a gut instinct. It's not even on a craft level. So yeah, it has nothing to do with the fact that you're sending a form query.
And sometimes, honestly, and this is actually probably more about things that I've requested as the full than queries itself. But for things that I've requested as the full, I'm at a stage now where I get a lot of really excellent manuscripts. And I enjoy them as I read them. But I have to want to live with that story for quite some time. And I have to live with that writer. We're going to be in a long-term partnership. And so I have to think about, where do they fit in my client list? How many clients can I reasonably handle and give them the kind of personal attention that I feel they deserve and that they need? Sometimes you get a book that you're like, okay, that was great. But you know what? I read that on Friday, and by Monday when it was time to email them, I couldn't remember everything about it. So maybe that's a sign that I am not the person to be advocating for that book.
Yeah, I didn't want to read it hundreds of times. That's usually the bar, right? Where it's like, I enjoyed this. That's really good. I enjoyed it. I'm good with that one read, as opposed to I want to read it over and over and over, and never stop. That's the gauge.
Yeah. Makes sense. Awesome. Okay, one more question about queries on Query Tracker. If a query hasn't been responded to, but earlier and later queries have, does that mean it's a maybe, or has it more than likely not been read yet?
Oh,
I feel like it's a really specific question, but we were talking about query trackers and query manager and all these databases, so I thought it would be good to fit it in. Go for it, Carly.
There was a point where I would try to answer queries in the order they came in. And after a while, I just started hopping around. And it also plays into what I'm really eager for at the time. So there's times I really am searching hard for a middle grade. So I will bypass all the picture books to get to a middle grade that appeared. Or maybe a title caught my eye. I'm like, oh, that seems interesting. And I'll click on that. Again, best efforts to answer things in the order I receive them. But at the end of the day, it's like we're just trying to get to our queries when time permits, because they're so our plates are full with client works too.
I also found, since I do use Query Manager and I used to use email, with Query Manager, which is the agent version of Query Tracker, just for those of you who might not know, you can actually search by genre. And for me, I found it was actually much more beneficial to the queryers if I started reading them by genre, because then I'm actually comparing apples to apples. And again, I might be looking for something specific. I might say, I really want an adult interfaith romance. And so I'm going to look at all the adult romances now. And that way I'm not looking at, picture books in the middle of it and trying to say, well, does this really make sense? Do I really love this? Because I was kind of in the mood for this, or I was already thinking about this. It really makes it a little more efficient. And a lot of times, yes, it may be a maybe. I mean, unfortunately, if you haven't heard from me and I've posted on social media that, I've responded to everything, it's in my maybe pile and I'm trying to make up my mind. Or I have a lot of things I'm already reading and I am trying to get through them so that I can ask for yours, so you don't have to wait any longer than you have to when I actually have your manuscript.
All of those ditto.
Awesome. All right. Actually, one more question about querying. I promise. This one came up twice about nudging. What or when or how is it appropriate to nudge the agent for a response when they're requesting more work and you haven't had a response from them?
For me, I just want to know if you've received another offer. I don't want to be nudged because another agent requested it. It's not a popularity contest. I'm not like, ooh, that agent liked it, I need to read it now. I'm like, it's in the line. I promise you it's there, but I just have so much that I'm doing. So you don't want to. There are some agents too that would get annoyed by that because you're wasting their time when they could be spending it reading your query. So it may not be that agent that you sent the nudge to. They might be totally fine with it. They're super nice. But other times, you want to think about the best way. So the traditional way is, if you get another offer, let them know. If you get an offer publication, let them know. If it's anything in between, I've had people tell me, hey, I did this wonderful mentorship and I have better pages now. Would you like me to send it? That's totally fine. But if you're just checking to check, unfortunately, it may just be a waste of both of your time.
Perfect.
I'd add, if somebody gives you, so I actually give a time frame. When I request a manuscript, I say you can expect to hear with me for between 4 and 5 months. If you're getting on 5 months and you haven't heard from me, feel free to nudge me. I understand not every agent does that. For those, I would definitely go with what Kaitlyn says, because they haven't given you a time frame, so you don't know. But if you have one, it's not rude. It's nice if you can wait till the time frame is passed. I do appreciate that.
Perfect. All right, we are at time. I do just want to ask one more question, which is, what are some red flags that authors should look out for schmagents? If anyone wants to tackle that one, feel free. And then we're going to go to our closing. If I didn't ask your question, I know I missed some because there were a lot. Please email us at the info@thewordordiversity.org. So yes, whoever wants to tackle the schmagents question.
I have two that just pop up into my mind as things that I've seen discourse about in the last couple of years. One is if an agent is asking you to pay anything ahead of time, to pay to see your pages, to edit it, to something. again, most of us work on commission. So if an agent is asking you to pay ahead of time, and again, I could be wrong, or there may be a unique instance, but for the most part, from what I know, an agent should not be asking you for money up front. And then the second one is if an agent is asking you for a too quick of a turnaround to make a decision. This decision is not an easy decision. You should not jump. I'm glad I'm not the only one. You should not jump on the first offer, because this is a contract between you and a partner that you're going to have for a while. So you should be given ample time to talk with the other agents that you might have a possible offer with, you to take time to research and to discuss and look at your options. So too close, a week turnaround, 3-day turnaround to make a decision, that's not fair to you. And honestly, that's not an agent you want to work with anyways.
Yep. I had to tell someone that the other day. They're like, the agent wants me to respond in a week. And I was like, whoa, red flag. But the other thing is, when we've had them at Bradford lately, for some reason, apparently Bradford Literary is a cool place to try to mimic, because there's been some people claiming that they're agents that work at Bradford and they're not. And we get the notification because someone is smart enough to go to the website and see that that person is not there. So if the agent is not on the website, they do not work with that agency.
That is something we're getting a lot of. There are scammers now that are attacking multiple agencies about this, and it's coming through the AALA. They're thinking of actually putting out a warning. Do your research. Make sure that they're part of that. Look, if there's emails, what does the email actually say? So if it says, so-and-so at xyzliteraryagency.com, and you're getting email from somebody at xyzliterary.com, yeah, probably not. You really want to make sure. And I will say, as sad as it is always different, especially, for example, for nonfiction. People who deal with adult nonfiction are often looking for clients and will reach out. But if you're suddenly getting an offer from somebody who's like, oh, I desperately want to sign you as a client, and they're not really giving you specific details, and it doesn't look like they actually know your work, especially, again, if they want you to send them money. No. We get money on commission. We don't ask you to pay up front so we can sell your book.
Perfect. Thank you. You are all super, super amazing. We at The Word appreciate you so much. Thank you all so much for joining us for today's event. Thank you to our amazing panelists. We appreciate you and are so grateful for you for spending this time with us. All the writers, booksellers, and book lovers in the room. We have so many resources for you to be sure to visit on our website, thewordfordiversity.org. If you're looking for support or more events like this one. Also, if I didn't address your question, please email us at info@thewordfordiversity.org. Something super exciting that we are starting. It's our 3rd annual Margins Bookselling Month. It starts in August. We're celebrating BIPOC, LGBTQIA2S+, neurodiverse, and disabled owned and managed booksellers all month long. I'll make sure to include that link in the email that you'll receive, as well as the link to this video with the recording. We build our programs collectively with our community. So we have 2 things to ask of you. If you have requests for workshop topics like this one that you would like to see, please share them with us so we can keep up to date with what you need. I'm going to pop in a form in the chat shortly, or you can just email again at that info@thewordfordiversity.org email. We also cannot run these programs without our community support. We are committed to ensuring that these events remain free and accessible. So to help, please, if you can make a donation, we greatly appreciate that at thewordfordiversity.org/donate. Thank you so much for being in community with us at The Word. We hope we will see you again soon. Don't forget to email us. Adios. Bye.
Bye.